All right, welcome back, guys. We're just going to complete this material regarding the sleep stuff. Not much left. It was a really short unit anyway, right? It was like a mini unit. Sorry. All right. So here's where we left off. We were talking about sleep disorders. Well, previously we were talking about sleep debt, but we can talk about sleep disorders to start. In regards to sleep disorders, there were many of them that exist, but we're just going to talk briefly about these three. We have sleep apnea. It's a condition that I happen to have, and I thankfully I've been treated for it and no problems once I've been getting my treatment. But it occurs when breathing is disrupted during sleep. It's characterized by fatigue in the day and heavy snoring during sleep. Can lead to serious health issues if left untreated. So this can be a really serious condition that can be fatal at later stages of life if you have decades and decades of this. Most people that end up having this never know that they have this condition. So it's something that you really need someone else to kind of alert you to, as far as like a friend, loved one, whatever the case, and be like, hey, something's not right. It's like I said, heavy snoring, it's really loud, or like fatigued in the day. Insomnia, characterized by difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, can be considered acute or chronic depending on the severity of the disorder. Oftentimes people will say like, "Oh yeah, I'm such an insomniac because you stay awake till 1 o'clock in the morning." Conscious decision of staying awake is different than inability to fall asleep. That is considered insomnia. So that can be something very serious. And thankfully, in most circumstances, it's more acute, so it's just temporary. In some circumstances, it can be chronic and it can last a long time. Sleep paralysis. This is similar to like sleepwalking. This is very similar to sleep talking as well. These are things that are not harmful but can be disruptive to your sleep. While not having any direct effects on the body, it is typically associated with difficulty transitioning from light sleep to deep sleep. Centuries ago, sleep paralysis was associated with demons and possessions. Obviously, there's no validity to that, but the reason for that is when you're in a sleep paralysis state, you're kind of like in between awake and sleeping as far as like deep sleep is concerned, which we're about to talk about. So if anyone walks by you, you can still kind of see them, but you see them like as a shadowy figure. So you can imagine, put two and two together, the shadowy figures, people would think like, oh yeah, something demonic was happening. Stages of sleep. There are three stages that we're going to discuss. And if you have like a smart device that measures your sleep while you're sleeping, it actually can tell you this stuff because it uses your heart rate to identify what stage of sleep are you in. Light sleep is going to be considered the entry point of sleep. It's when the body unwinds and slows down. Not uncommon to drift between awake and asleep during this stage. Um, as a teacher, I see this all the time. Pretty much every day that I teach, I see students that are just drifting out. Right, even these micro sleeps where you catch yourself kind of just you're comfortable enough, you're really really tired, maybe the temperature's good, and you just catch yourself waking back up. That's all light sleep. Deep sleep. This occurs when within the first few hours of sleep. Feeling refreshed in the morning typically means a great night of deep sleep. During this stage, it becomes much harder to wake up as you shut out outside stimuli. This stage promotes physical recovery, aspects of memory and learning, and supporting the immune system, arguably the most important stage of sleep. Finally, REM, or rapid eye movement. Interestingly, if you look at someone while they're sleeping and they're in REM, you can literally open their eyelids and you can see that their eyes are darting back and forth. This occurs numerous times during sleep, typically seen right after a deep sleep stage, tend to stay in the stage longer and becomes very active during the final moments of this stage. The activity of the brain is what results in dreaming. This stage promotes mood regulation, learning, memory, and review information from the previous day. So your brain lights up like a Christmas tree when you're in REM. And at the end of REM, when you're spiking, your brain's actually going to generate a ton of images, and you're going to try to create a story out of those images so that it's at least cohesive to a degree. I say that because there's a lot of weird dreams we have where you're just like, what's going on? But these are dreams that like at least have some sort of story to it, so that way you can interpret it as something actually happening. Expected amounts of sleep. I don't expect you to memorize this whole thing. Honestly, the one that you should pay attention to is the teenager because that's what most of you guys are going to be in your age range. But if you look, this dark blue color indicates how much sleep you should be getting. Light blue is kind of like okay, this is reasonable, and then this orangey yellow color, that's amount of sleep that you should never be getting. Right, that's not enough or too much. As a teenager, 8 to 10 is the recommended amount per night. How many teenagers are getting 8 to 10? Very little. I know that there's a lot on our plate. We got a ton of classes. We have jobs. We have school. We have clubs. We have hobbies. We have sports. Ton of stuff happening, right? I think a realistic goal for teenagers should be 7. And if seven's a little out of reach, aim for 6. but 8 to 10 is the ideal amount. Why all this sleep is required, especially during these years? Development. You're going through so much development, both physically and mentally. Especially as a teenager, you have another spike of developmental, physical development, but you also have a lot of mental development to happen as well. Finally, what can we do to fix this? What's the solution? How can we improve? If you can at least implement one of these things, that's a great step in the right direction. Stick to a sleep schedule. In an ideal world, that would be 7 days a week. But if you can get 5 days of the week, so Sunday through Thursday, because those are the days that you have to wake up the next day for typically school or work, excellent. Practice a bedtime ritual. All of us have bedtime rituals already that you may not be familiar with or may not think of it as a ritual. So, for instance, brushing your teeth, flossing, skincare routine, reading a book or reading like a couple pages or a chapter, meditation. Those are excellent, great bedtime rituals. Avoid long naps. I've talked about how naps can be toxic in our last video. The problem is, even though naps can repay your sleep debt, if you nap for too long, it's going to disrupt your sleep cycle, and then you're going to continue with this process. You'll be awake for too long. You'll be tired the next day. You're going to nap again for a long time. Exercise. If you exercise and you especially get a good workout in, if you're playing your sport, you're just exercising in general, you'll go home, you'll already be tired, you'll get some food in you, and then you'll be able to rest up. You'll be able to rejuvenate appropriately. So that works really well as well. Try not to exercise within 2 hours of sleep just because you're going to still be pretty active. Eat a good meal and drink enough fluids. This is big. Try to avoid food within 2 hours of sleep. So obviously something healthier would be ideal as far as what you're eating. Try to drink enough fluids as well. I try to drink about a glass of water before going to bed, probably like 30 to 45 minutes. It should never be enough that you wake up feeling the need to urinate. So if that's happening, drink less fluids, right? Um, and by the way, as far as avoiding food within 2 hours, if you eat a big meal, even if it's a healthier meal, and you immediately try to go to sleep, the problem is it's going to slow digestion down, and that can make it so that you gain weight easier. So you want to be careful with that. Avoid LED lights. Our phones, right? Try to avoid it for 30 minutes before sleep. We obviously have this addiction with our phones and we use them all the time, but try what you can to just put it down. Now, for me, I just try to put it down on my bedstand and say, okay, like for the next 15 to 30 minutes, I'm just going to be unwinding, and I'm just not going to try to check my phone. And that can go a long way. And finally, keep the bed and the bedroom as a place for sleep. I understand in your room you may have like a desk, and that's where you do your schoolwork. That's where you play video games. That's where you watch TV. That's fine. But the bed itself, kind of treat that like a holy quadrangle or a holy rectangle, where that's all you're doing: sleep and sleep related activities. The problem with other things that you may do is that it confuses your brain. If you start eating in bed, and I'm not a big fan of eating in bed, I think it's disgusting personally because bugs, right? But if you start eating in bed, you're going to convince your brain, when I'm in this bed, I should be hungry. That's not good. You're going to eat more than you need. Even studying in bed, I know you may be comfy and like you're comfortable overall, but you're conflicting information. Your brain is getting information saying we should be relaxing and getting ready for sleep, while it's also getting information saying we should be studying. So what ends up happening is you start losing that information, right? And you don't really study as effectively as you should. So overall, short unit, like I said, really quick, nothing too crazy. So I appreciate you guys checking in. Next, we'll be doing some stuff relating to nervous system. Have a great day.